Jerry Williams, I am so excited about this interview. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, which is called FBI Retired Case File Review. I don't even know where to start, but thanks for coming on to the Happiest Retirees podcast.
Well, I told you this when I received your email. I have been more excited about doing this podcast interview than I have any other interview I've done. And I've done a lot because of the fact that I'm always thinking about what retirement means to me and what it looks like for me compared to others. And it's just a fascinating topic. So, yay, let's do this.
Well, in fact, you told me that listening to some of the our other episodes was like therapy, kind of.
Yeah, it was because a lot of times I wonder or question whether I'm doing retirement right
Yeah.
because I'm working really hard. And so, this was kind of like a validation of, retirement looks different for a lot of people, and there's really no wrong way to do it. It's whatever, makes you happy. And that's what your podcast is all about.
That's right. Wow. Um, yeah, so that's one thing that I find with so many of the happy retirees that I talk to is that they're so busy, they're wondering, I don't feel retired. I'm like more busy than ever.
Well, I think that's definitely a theme that I can jump in on because I feel the same way.
Again, like I said, I'm so excited about this episode that I've been trying to figure out where to start, but I think we'll start with your career because I have so many questions about your time. You spent 26 years working as a special agent for the FBI, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you've had some incredible cases in your own right, and you've done reviews. So for people who don't know, each episode you review like the entire case, and you've reviewed some of your own. Do you want to highlight a couple of your own big cases and what happened there?
Yeah, so I've had several big cases that I've been able to talk about on the podcast, but one that I actually fictionalized for one of my novels was a Ponzi scheme case that was really pretty special because it was at the time the largest ever charity Ponzi scheme in the country. And, it involved $350 million worth of people donating to what they thought was their favorite charity.
Oh,
And in some cases, the money did get there because almost in every situation, a Ponzi scheme has some legitimacy to it, and then it just
oh,
kind of falls apart. But yeah, they thought they were giving to their favorite charities, and at the end, it turned out to be a Ponzi scheme.
was that the one you mentioned? Long term undercover work, was that case?
You mean for me?
Yeah.
No, I've never done any long-term undercover
Oh,
work. I've actually done, my undercover work is basically been, safe and and
oh,
afar over the phone,
oh.
playing roles while making calls over the phone because I spent most of my career investigating fraud and economic crimes, and so. Whenever I've had a role, it's been something like that where it's temporary and it's very, very short term. But I had there was not anyone playing undercover in that particular case because it was almost all historical. The crime
Oh,
had already occurred. We came in, shut everything down, and now we're in the business. We're in the business of gathering that information. A lot of times, you might have an investigation which is ongoing, and you're using undercover as a tool to gather more evidence before the crime uh, is stopped or taken down. And so those are just, two different ways of looking at a case. And so in my Ponzi scheme case, we did not use any of those investigative tools.
gotcha, okay. Well, and I think and I'm guilty of this because I'm such a fan of FBI shows and movies and all that, but, you made a really good point. I was reading something you had written, and you said, with a gun which is kind of the more like exciting thing people think of. People can steal hundreds, but with a lie, they can steal millions, which is kind of where you came in with those fraud cases.
Yeah, that's my tagline, and it's just so true because a
Yeah.
lot of times we talk a lot about, violent crime, and we're talking about which of course is it's something that is just devastating for our country. But a lot of times they don't really think a lot. People don't think a lot. The public doesn't think a lot about how devastating financial crimes are too. I mean, millions and millions and millions of, I'm sure it's billions of
Yeah.
dollars are lost every year through fraud.
Oh, and I can only imagine and this is especially relevant to retirees who,
Mm,
work
absolutely.
all their life to save money, and if someone just stole it at the end, it's just hard to even think about.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about violence, taking somebody's life savings, I mean, that's violence. That's
Y
financial violence.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the one that everyone the most recent, or not the most recent, I'm sure it's happening a lot, but the most famous recent one was, the one out of New York,
Oh, you
uh,
mean, Madoff.
Bernie Madoff, yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
That was,
How could we forget his
I
name?
know. Maybe I'm trying to block him out, it's too scary to think about, but yeah, that was
Yeah,
the most, uh, just heartbreaking one.
yeah.
Okay, so you worked 26 years in the FBI, and now you're on a mission to show the public who the FBI is and what the FBI does. Tell me a little bit about how you got from being a special agent to what you're doing now. I mean, the transition and all of that.
The transition was pretty easy because in the last 5 years of my FBI career, I was appointed as the spokesperson and, as the media rep, and it was
Wow,
my
that's a whole new skill, isn't it, from what you were doing?
Yeah, actually, I did it for many, many years before I became the primary person. I had been, so for a total of 12 years, I was either the primary person or the backup. But when the
Okay.
person that was doing it full time retired, then I was given the full time position. And it's like in even at most police departments, the person that is, talking to the media, who's dealing with the public, is a sworn law enforcement officer. And so in the FBI, in some offices, it's still the case where it is a veteran agent who's going out there representing the field office and representing the special agent in charge of the whole office when it comes to, that forward facing, with the public.
Yeah.
And so, and Philadelphia now, I don't think has an agent doing it. They have a public affairs specialist, but when I was doing it was an agent. And
Oh,
I did that for 5 years. And so, being in front of the mic, behind the mic, and doing all of that was a skill that I definitely picked up during the end of my career. And this is important to say because I think a lot of retirees will be surprised to hear this. The FBI has a mandatory retirement of 57.
okay, which is young. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as retirement goes, right?
Yeah, it is. And, for most people, it's too young for them to decide to, play pickleball or golf all day. And
Yeah.
so, they're looking, and a lot of times it's at the same age that their kids are going off to college too, or have just finished college. And so it's a matter financially of not being able to just sit back and retire.
Yeah.
Um, on your pension, because we do have a pension. And so almost all agents leave the FBI and go to a post FBI position.
Okay.
And because that's going to happen, they usually leave as soon as they're eligible, which is age 50, with at least 20 years of service. And
Okay.
so, yeah. And so most agents leave in their early 50s. to a post FBI career. A lot of times, like by that time, by the time I was 51 and I left the FBI, I had had 26 years in of working, very hard. And so I was ready for, I love the FBI and, you know, it was a wonderful job. But I was ready to move on.
Yeah. I would imagine too, in the FBI, you have to be so buttoned down and by the book, I'm guessing. So did you feel a little bit of breathing room as you moved on to your next career?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I changed that much as far as being buttoned down and there's a saying there's a saying in the FBI, and this has a lot to do with our mindset for retirement also, and that is that the FBI is not what you do, but who you are. And of
Oh.
course, that can play on your, I mean, I've heard that so many times, and recently, I think when I interviewed the FBI director on my podcast, I'm pretty sure that he actually said that also.
Oh.
So, it is, like a mindset that, or maybe even a brainwashing, I don't know, that we get. So, that transition of retiring and continuing with the same, um values that you had as an agent, it's hard to shake because
Oh,
again, being an agent is not what what you do or what you did, but who you are.
who you are. And yeah, just a quick aside, I listened to that episode with it was with director Christopher Ray, correct?
Yes. Hmm.
That was fantastic. It was, so impressive to hear the way you 2 spoke with each other, and I could feel the respect coming from him to you, which was, I don't know, sort of touching because he's such a big shot. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything. He's just a big position, right? And you
Yeah.
could tell he was, like, wanted to learn from you, which was really
It
cool.
was unbelievable. It was one of those, how you dream about something and you think, nah, it's never gonna happen. And then you just say to yourself, well, all they can say is no. And
Exactly, yeah.
and so that's exactly what happened. It was, I was coming up on my 300th episode, and as a podcaster, for some reason, 300 is like, the pinnacle, when you get to 300, you've made it. So I wanted to do something really special. And I looked to see how many podcasts that the director had done, and there weren't any.
There
He
was
hadn't
0?
done there was 0. I mean, if you
Wow.
count being interviewed by NPR and them turning it into a podcast episode, whether you could
Right.
count that, but he was really doing a news program,
Yeah.
like 60 minutes, and then they'll turn it into a podcast episode. But actually being on a podcast with a podcaster, no. But I
Wow.
thought, "Ah, I'm gonna do it." Now I had met him and he knew of me, not just a photo op or something, because one, I had been honored by the FBI Agents Association, as their, distinguished service honoree, and a part of um, uh, that award was being able to sit with the director for dinner at their event. And so I sat next
Wow.
to Director Ray at this event, and during that time, I made sure he pulled out his cell phone, and we made sure that he subscribed and followed my podcast, and
Always
so
be networking, Jerry.
always be networking. And so he knew about the podcast. He claimed that he had heard some of the episodes, but again, he wasn't following it. So I made sure that he was following the show. And so when the ask was made, I had to get through his people first. But when the ask was made, it was a lot easier for him and them to say yes because they knew the show and what I was doing, and you know, that it was going to be a positive experience. Even though I don't think I held back. I think I asked
No.
him the questions that I knew that listeners, both from the public, retired agents, active agents, would want to know?
It was not fluff. I You challenged him, which was also impressive to me. Um, and yeah, and I can say I'm glad you got to talk to him personally because I live out in near Hollywood, so I can say that the more people that get involved, the the worse it gets, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
as a media person, media rep or public affairs person, I know all about that. So,
Okay.
I
Yes.
mean, I was the gatekeeper for a while because, and again, I keep thinking of things, but post FBI, I took a position for 7 years as the media director for SEPTA, which is the Philadelphia public transit system with the trains, the buses, the
Oh, amazing.
subways, and the trolleys. And I did that for 7 years. So, just um, being in front and being the gatekeeper for the transit agency, I know that there's always those people that are double checking to make sure of the intentions of your intentions when you request
Oh,
an interview.
they're always on the lookout what will be bad for our person. Yeah,
Yeah,
completely. And for anyone, because we have a lot of listeners in Atlanta, so SEPTA would be probably the MARTA of Pennsylvania, I would imagine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I should say, since the way you were talking about FBI Director Ray, I had that same experience with you because I it may have been that episode, I can't quite remember, but I was listening to your show, and I thought, wait a minute, why don't I just see if I could reach out to her and see if she'll be on this show? And you responded, I mean, right away, which I thought was so considerate. But for some reason, the way you started the sentence, I thought you were saying no. You said, "Hey, thanks so much for reaching out, and I accept." It was like the greatest like surprise. So thank you.
You're, you're
Uh,
welcome.
leave it to the writer to leave suspense. Uh, so I mean, I could talk to you forever about the FBI, and we can go back to that as throughout this. But um, as you transitioned, and as you finished with SEPTA, I don't know if this exactly, coincided, but your I think it was your daughter had a kid, you had your first grandkid maybe, or maybe it wasn't the first, but they were in Raleigh, North Carolina, and so you wanted to live near them, so you moved there?
Yeah, there was a few years in between there,
Okay.
but and between that, but I actually okay, let me do the timeline
Uh,
with some
yeah.
dates. So I retired from the FBI in 2008. I went directly working with SEPTA, which is why I retired. I might have been with the FBI for another few years because, again, mandatory is not till 57. But
Right,
I
okay.
got this call and there was an opening at SEPTA and they were really, really interested in me applying. And I thought, well, I can't give up this opportunity, to do that. And so I applied and I got the job. And so I left the FBI. So I
Okay.
like I said, I might have stayed a little bit longer if I hadn't had that opportunity, but when the door opens, you gotta go
It
through
it
because
was sort of an offer you couldn't refuse, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So then I stayed with them for 7 years, but during that time period, even before I left the FBI, maybe 2 years before I left the FBI, I started writing my first crime novel, which is
Oh,
which is Pay to Play. So I've
okay.
always known that I wanted to write a book, and like a lot of people, they say that, I
Yeah.
never really started, but, I had this opportunity to go to Guam for the FBI. And
Oh.
while I was at Guam, I took everything, all the notes and all the research and all the different things that I had on looking into this, writing this crime novel, which was based on a true case. I took everything with me. And while I was there for at least a week or so. I used that time in the evening to organize everything and work on an outline. And so that got me started. And once I got the outline going, I was working on this crime novel. So that was always a goal, and
Oh,
always
okay.
a goal for me to be an author, even the whole time I was with SEPTA. And the reason I left SEPTA after 7 years is because I had a literary agent. We
Which is
were
hard to get, by the way, so I don't
right.
know, you pulled
Yes.
that off kinda quickly.
Well, thriller fest, for
Oh,
anybody,
really?
yes, anybody writing a thriller book or a mystery or crime novel or anything like that. There is, and I'm doing a pitch for Thriller Fest, but there is a conference in New York every May, June, and they have what they call Agent Fest, where you can do like speed dating with agents,
Oh,
and that's where I went and I pitched my book, and I got the agent. So going back to the
amazing.
story, where
Yeah,
all these
sorry,
all
I
these
derailed you. Don't tell SEPTA.
I see what you did there. So I left when it was time, when I thought I was, it was time for this book to be published. I wanted to focus on that. And that's how the podcast stopped. So none of the stuff that I've done has been by chance. It has always been part of my post FBI retirement plan, to
Oh.
become this, best-selling author. That hasn't worked out the way that I wanted to, but
You're getting there.
yeah, I'm doing my best. So I left SEPTA because I wanted to concentrate. I didn't need the money. I was already getting my FBI pension. I stayed with SEPTA long enough to be vested to get a pension from them. And so it was like, I don't have to work. Let's spend this time. By that time now, I'm 58, when I
Okay.
left SEPTA. So I'm still pretty young when I
Y
finally, stop working for someone else. Let me put it
y
that way instead of calling
Right, right.
and calling it retirement. And so that's when the whole content creator thing started, because I needed to build a platform. You've heard that as an author, where you build a platform so that you can potentially pull in people to read your books.
Right.
And I decided that to do build that platform, I would start a podcast, because I knew so many agents with wonderful cases in Philadelphia, and I just thought, well, these stories need to be told. Again, my media person, and promoting, the positive perception of the FBI that I picked up when I was doing the job professionally with the FBI, and then even with SEPTA, learning how to promote this public image. And so I decided, okay, I'll do a podcast, and I will interview retired agents about their cases,
Yeah.
and take it from, and a lot of time you'll have a podcast with an FBI agent and they're talking about their whole career. When did you join and why, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I do that, but I do that at the very end. I want to concentrate on the case. So I take that case from the moment they were assigned that case to the very end, when hopefully somebody goes to prison.
Right. Yeah.
And what happened was is that the podcast, I've published 2 crime novels and 2 nonfiction books, but the podcast is really what took off. It took off, and it became a thing unto itself. And I have been doing this now. It will be 9 years in
Wow.
January. Yes, I started in 2016, January of 2016, doing this podcast. And like I said, it just has taken off, and I will be publishing my 330th episode next week.
Well, congratulations. And I does it seem like so like you said at first the podcast was a way of building a platform to find potential readers. Do you ever feel like now your books are a platform to find potential listeners?
That's a good way to say it, because definitely, the when most people who know me or learn about me, it's through the podcast, and I would love it. I mean, I've got lots and lots of podcast listeners. I would love it if each and every one of them went out and bought my books, but that's not necessarily the case. It's, there are different audiences,
Yeah.
but, I have been, I've been very successful in the podcasting business, and luckily, some of that has also rubbed off onto the author, um, platform too.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, I can see why. And here's a little I'm just gonna spitball a title for you. You have the right to remain retired. Could you use that for something?
I like that. I actually just interviewed, an agent. Usually, all my episodes have FBI agents. They have to it has to have an FBI employee, but sometimes they're accompanied by one of their law enforcement partners, and I
Hmm.
just interviewed a Homeland of Security Investigations agent along with his FBI partner, and he has a podcast called The Right to Remain Silent, so
Oh, okay.
the
Nice.
name's already taken.
Oh, dang it. So now I'm gonna ask this. This is like a could be a hard question, but we'll see. Are you happy?
Yes, absolutely. Look at this.
That was easy.
Yeah, very, very easy. And I'm happy because I thought you were gonna ask me this. You haven't asked me this, but which
Oh,
is what is my definition of retirement?
yes, I do want to know
And
that.
okay, my definition of retirement is doing what you want to do when you want to do it.
Ah,
And there is
yes.
no better freedom than that. And of course, freedom is one of the best things to make someone happy.
Yes, for sure.
So, yeah, I am definitely doing what I wanna do when I wanna do it. I mean, the greatest thing about retirement is not having to deal with an alarm clock, and
Ah,
so I wake up when my body wants me to wake up, and I get out of bed when my mind wants me to actually roll out of bed, and,
yeah.
having that freedom, is what it is all about.
Did you have a moment where you took a hammer and smashed the alarm clock?
I There was as soon as I retired, I mean, I took that alarm clock and I put it up in the closet and eventually either gave it away or threw it away, but, it was probably the next day when, as soon as I realized I don't need this alarm clock, it was gone.
Yeah. I
God,
can't wait for that day.
bye-bye.
Yeah. Um,
Oh.
okay, so you currently, as we mentioned, you live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Tell me, so we've done research on, we try to find out what happy retirees do so that people can try to emulate that and be happy. And a lot of the people we talk to live near at least one of their adult children. It doesn't have to be like right there, but close enough to see them. It sounds like, so I don't know how many adult children you have, but you live near your daughter.
Yes, I actually have 3 kids.
Oh, okay.
My girls are twins, are identical twins, and I am working on the daughter that I left behind in South Jersey outside of Philadelphia. I'm working on her coming to Raleigh every single day. She's getting sick of it, matter
I
of fact.
bet. Yeah,
But
as only a mother can do, right?
yes, but her twin sister got married and moved down here, and when she had her first kid in 2018, I was retired by then. I retired from SEPTA at the very end of 2015, and so I had been, she had married in New Jersey, which meant that I had to do all the work, but all the pre-planning wedding work. But she was already down here in Raleigh, and she had the first my first grandson, Carter, and my husband and I were coming down every other month, and she was coming up, and we were trying to see him. And when she got pregnant with my second grandson, I just thought, "I don't wanna do this anymore. I want to be able to be a hands-on." I was a little jealous of her mother-in-law, who was taking care of Carter on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and I thought, "Well, we could share that." We
Yeah.
could share that, responsibility, so I begged and begged and begged my husband, and in 2020, in the middle of COVID, we sold our house and moved down to Raleigh, and I started taking care of my grandkids Tuesday, Thursday, every other Friday, and, at the same time was, writing the books and, blogging on my website and, of course, doing the podcast, and so, yeah, I was extremely have been extremely busy, since we've moved down here because got a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if I have a 2-year-old, if I move to Raleigh, can I slip him into your care?
Well, actually, this year I'm starting to transition because
Oh,
the youngest is 4, and so he started preschool, and so it was still supposed to be Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Friday afternoon. My husband and I would go pick him up from preschool and bring him to our house, and then my daughter realized that she works early. She is an associate director of a Y, and she works
oh,
early on Tuesdays. It makes more sense for her just to pick him up. So now, starting this week, we just have him on Thursday and every other Friday. So I'm actually freeing up time so that I can, of course, do more work on the
right, right.
podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My time is already taken. So
It's like your grandkid is your boss and you're getting some time off.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, well, you have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
definitely are bosses, so
oh my gosh, there's no way around that. Yeah.
yeah, they definitely tell us what to do and where to be and what to bring with us when we come, so
If he's having a bad day, I'm having a bad
but
day.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so wonderful, and I know for a lot of people who retire, that is one of the joys of their retirement is having that opportunity to kinda have a do-over, to spend time with the grandkids and play with them and take them places that you couldn't do when you were working or do
Yeah.
as much as you wanted to do when you were working. But as a retiree who doesn't have to be anywhere at any time, you're there, to see all of those moments and experience it in a way that you never were able to do as a parent. And that also helps to increase that happiness level.
Well, that must be part of that freedom that you had mentioned,
Yeah.
and I know that I you had mentioned something about this, or maybe I read it in your bio, but, um, I find, like, sometimes I'm feeling guilty that I'm not spending enough time with them, but then I'm also feeling guilty that I'm not working enough. So I'm just
Yeah.
feeling guilty about both and trying to do both, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
There's definitely a lot of that, especially when you have a high-powered professional job where there is no looking at the clock. It's
yeah,
not, it's not at 5 o'clock, it's time to go. That just not was not part of either of my careers with the FBI or with SEPTA. And so, yeah, being able to concentrate fully on what their needs and what they're doing it's a blessing, it really is.
yeah, I can just imagine, and, I'm really glad you get to do that,
Yeah.
and I hope you get your South Jersey daughter to move down to Raleigh.
My
So,
my hat wait a minute, I do before we go on, I have to make sure that everyone knows that I also have a granddaughter. My
oh,
son, it lives on Whidbey Island in Washington State.
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, so the kids are 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, he's way out west, so I only see her once a year. I just saw her last month. We had a big family vacation at the beach in the Wilmington area here in North Carolina, and they came
Oh,
down. So I got to spend a whole week with her and spoil her. So I want to make sure that I include Wendy in my discussion of Carter and Cooper. So
well, Wendy deserves it. I'm glad you fit got her into the to the
yes, I had to
show.
make sure. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want any more of that guilt, I
Exactly.
already had the parental guilt, I don't need the grandparent guilt, yeah.
Yes.
Make sure I give her credit too,
Okay, I wanna get this is getting back to some of my I'm gonna nerd out a little bit because 'cause I'm so fascinated, but, you do I don't know the extent of it, but don't you do some technical advising for TV shows
Yes,
about
yeah.
the FBI?
Yeah, I've had, an opportunity to work on several shows, some of them just, some basic questions, but I worked on The Class of '09, which was on Hulu, and the executive producer for that, Tom Rob Smith, he was so great in giving me credit, about, the help that I gave him on that TV show. Of course, it's all about the FBI and FBI agents, and it takes place in the past and the future, in the present and the future. It's really a great show.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but I'm also a consultant on a brand new show that's going to come out next year, and it's called Duster.
Okay.
One of the producers is J.J. Abrams,
Wow, I've
and
heard of him.
yeah, you heard of him, the showrunner is Latoya Morgan, who's been a writer on a lot of shows, and I've been working with him on that show for over 4 years, and so
Wow.
it's been oh, yeah, from the very beginning, before they even started writing the scripts, I've been a part of that because it features, in a fictionalized role, the first Black female FBI agent, and so I am
Wow.
very, very invested in this TV show. They've already filmed it. I've read all 8, the script, so I know how it goes. I'm sworn to secrecy with the NDA, so
Oh,
I
come on,
can't
tell us.
I can't tell you anymore except for it takes place in the early 1970s, and again, the first Black female FBI agent, and I just love the show. I think it's smart and clever, and I can't wait for it to come out, and I hope my role gets to increase with the show as they promote it, and as I hope it gets picked up for additional seasons. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Tell us the name of that one again?
Duster.
Duster. Okay, and where do we see it? Where do we find it?
It's going to be on Max.
On Oh, so the kinda HBO Max
Yes.
conglomerate. I yeah,
Hmm.
okay, gotcha. Wow, that's very exciting.
Yes, it's
Um,
very, very exciting.
I wonder so you go through the script and like, point out inaccuracies of what the FBI wouldn't do and that sort of thing?
Yeah, really, as an author, as a crime fiction author, I know that the most important thing is the story. So
Yeah.
at the beginning, when I started doing this kind of stuff, I was like, oh, that would never happen. But maybe it needs to happen in this particular story because to get from point, A to point B, we're gonna have to do this. And so I'm less and less strict about that really wouldn't happen that way. But if I can find ways to make it more plausible and believable, that's really what I suggest.
Right. So, sometimes it's just good for the story and you're okay with that, but
Yeah.
if you can, you massage it to get it more
Yeah.
in line.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And maybe also, I can help, maybe there's a line that they used or, some dialogue and I can juice it up a bit, or maybe when I've and again, I don't know how much I'm able to say about this, but I've been involved from the very beginning. So I've talked to the set designers, the costume people, and just helping them make it, you know, real.
Right.
As real and authentic as possible. It's been a lot of fun.
Getting into some of the myths and that sort of thing that come up in a lot of these scripts. Why does it seems like so many FBI movies have someone who says, like, the local cop who says, "Don't give me any of that jurisdiction crap," or what does that really happen?
No, it does not. I
Okay.
really mean it. That's probably one of the most irritating things. And when I see that, I have to speak up
Yeah.
because that whole the FBI doesn't play well with others is just not true. I mean, the task force concept has been around for years and years and years. So in every FBI office and many of the different violations, they have task forces where law enforcement partners from other agencies, whether there be other local agencies or state agencies or other federal agencies, are sitting in our office space. They are
Oh,
working as partners with FBI agents and analysts and, on a day-to-day basis. They are assigned FBI cars. We pay their overtime. We know if especially if it's in a large city, we know all those people. It's not we don't pull up to a crime scene and have to introduce ourselves. We already know everybody. It's
yeah.
that's the way it is. Our the heads of the different offices meet, for lunch on a regular basis. It just is not the way they make it seem, but I get it. Um, a story is not a story unless something goes wrong,
Yeah.
unless something happens, unless there's conflict, unless there's tension. And this is an easy, kind of amateur way of creating of creating that conflict and tension. And so that's why you see it a lot on in books, TV shows, and movies. But it's
Yeah,
not true.
in reality, it's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here," instead of "Get out of my backyard," type of thing.
Absolutely, and it's not because the FBI is, better and smarter, but we have resources.
Yeah.
We have money and equipment, and so if there's a local police department that needs, something that we have, yes, they're very welcoming. "Come on, help us," and the same goes the other direction. If we're working on a case, of course we wanna get the locals involved because they know everybody.
Yeah.
They have an historical knowledge of that particular location that they can share with us and help us. So it's a win-win to work together. And so, yeah, yeah, that's one of my. I have 20 cliches and misconceptions about the FBI. I actually have a book.
Yeah, tell us the exact title of of that book.
Yeah, the book is called FBI Myths and Misconceptions, a manual for armchair
Ah,
detectives. And I
perfect.
go through 20 cliches about the FBI that you find because what most people know about the FBI, they get from books, TV, and
Yeah.
movies. And so these are cliches that are perpetuated, over and over again in some of these crime stories. And so yeah, I went through and picked out 20 of them and I put them together and a handy little manual for those who read, watch, and write crime stories and TV shows about the FBI, and for those who want to become FBI agents, if they read the book, they won't embarrass themselves when they get to Quantico. So
Okay, so Jerry, how do you, as you are now have this freedom, but you found this passion for writing and podcasting, um, how do you craft that into the day and week and month and life that you want to live? I mean, because that's a lot of moving parts. How do you do it?
I'm still working on that. I mean, that was one of the reasons that, as I admitted to you, I was wondering if I was doing retirement wrong because
Yeah.
because there are times when I'm feeling that pressure, that I've got something to do, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I need to do this, I need to do that. I mean, I have an audience now that is expecting me to put out an episode, and it's to a point now where there were maybe for the first 5 years, I did it every week, and I was not at the end, I was not happy
Mm,
because it
yeah.
was a grind putting out an episode every week. and so I changed it. Matter of fact, I went to this fabulous I travel a lot. It sounds like I'm always here in my home office, but I do like to travel too. And so I took my all my, kids, and we went to, Paris
Oh,
and
wow.
Amsterdam and Prague. Prague is one of my favorite. And
Oh,
when I came back, before I left, I was gone for 2 weeks, and I told the podcast audience I was gone. I wasn't going to do a podcast, and that when I came back, instead of every week, it would be every other week. Now, I just changed that at the end of last year, and now I usually put out 3 episodes a month.
a month. Okay.
Yeah, 3, and sometimes it might be 3 in a row. It might be, 1 and then 2 right after each other. I determine that as far as my own schedule. And the only reason I did it, I would really still like to do every other week, is because I just have so much interest
Mm.
from retired agents. And I felt bad saying, yeah, you
Oh,
can come on the show. Let's record now and it will go out in 6 months. And it was like, I don't like doing that. So
right.
I just to keep the shelf from, building and building with a pile of interviews that have not yet been posted, I decided to add one more a week. And like I said, I've been doing that since the end of last year of
Okay.
putting out 3 a month.
Yeah.
And so, and if it becomes too much, then I'll stop doing it. But right now, and maybe if I can clean up the backlog of interested people, maybe I'll go back to every other month. But now that I'm only babysitting 2 days instead of 3 days, I'm hoping that I can, really feel the difference in that schedule. I have a new literary agent,
Oh.
and who I also met at Thriller Fest, and so I am working on a new 2 book storyline, our 2 book storyline with her, and hopefully we'll get that out to on submission next year. So, trying to get this new crime novel done, working on the podcast. I'm not doing any consulting right now because the show is ready to come out. Um, but also blogging and doing my TV and movie reviews. I'm still pretty busy,
Yes.
and the
And
occasional podcast interview.
oh, thanks for making time. Um, I was gonna say if I went to Thriller Fest, I would hope I could also learn to dance like Michael Jackson, but I don't know if that's part of it.
No, no, they don't have that.
Oh, dang it. Okay.
That might be the theme music, I don't know, but,
You can't moonwalk into retirement or
no.
something. Okay.
Maybe you can, I don't know.
So, do you have any tips? I mean, I know that you were wondering if you were doing retirement right, and it's not like there's any one right or wrong way, but for at least from where what I've read and the people I've talked to, you do seem to be doing it the right way. So what tips could you offer someone else who's thinking about retiring, or maybe they did retire but they're not happy? What can they do to be more like you?
I don't know if they wanna be like me, but but I had to say this, in order to have a reason to get out of bed, that's what you're looking for. Whatever it is that you wanna do in retirement, is it enough to make you want to get out of bed at your own time schedule, not with the when the alarm clock goes off, but is there something that you have to look forward to? There has to be. You can't be just ticking down the days until, you know, you pass. And I don't wanna end on a real negative note, but you just don't know also. So this is something that happened last year. I was telling you how I was sharing my babysitting duties with my daughter's mother-in-law, who was much younger. I'm now 67 and she was 61, and last August she went to the dentist, and something happened in the dentist's office, but she had a major heart issue
Oh, no.
and she died.
Oh, no.
And I always thought I was happy for her and knowing that she had the opportunity to, spend time with our grandsons. Um, but my God, once that happened, it put a fire under me of really looking at what it is that I want to do and making sure that I get it done, that I don't hold off. Next month, we're going to Madrid and Barcelona and Lisbon. Uh, Last year, I was in Buenos Aires and Rio and New Zealand and Australia. I travel a lot when I can, but I also just, read books and watch movies and TV shows and, spend time and at least on the phone with my friends and laughing and doing all of that. Because in these retirement years, you don't want to squander them and you don't want to waste them either. And so when I say that I look at retirement as doing what you want to do when you want to do it, make sure you know what that is and that you're actively participating in your life and finding joy and happiness and doing all the things that you have on your bucket list. This is the time in your
Yes.
retirement to start checking those off. And so yeah, that's my tip for everyone is that you just don't know. I like to this is really morbid, but I like to think, okay, how much longer? If I have 20 more years and I'm 87, what am I doing now to make sure that I have the mobility and the health and all of that to get there? And it really isn't morbid. It's part of making sure that, I'm living my best life, and making sure that I'm doing everything that I can to extend it.
It's like
So,
you're doing a case review of your life
mm,
as you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the way I've talked about how, I've planned out and organized everything, making turns and switches when life brings up something new and different. I'm also planning this retirement and this life and, what I hope it's going to be. And, I don't want to have any regrets.
Yeah.
And so I'm making sure I get things done. So that's why when your email showed up, and I saw that it was the Happiest Retirees podcast. I immediately started listening to your episodes and getting that therapy that I needed that I told you about and seeing how other people are doing it. And um, it's just been such a pleasure. So I hope that anybody listening, to our conversation, really, gets something out of it because I certainly have gotten a lot out of the episodes that I've had a chance to listen to. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jerry, because I was so excited when you said yes, and you've met the mark and beyond. This has been such a great
Thank
time
you.
talking to you. In fact, you'll probably get another email in a year from now saying, "Any chance you could come back?"
Oh, I can do that. I can do
Okay.
that. But can
Okay.
we can we can we dedicate this episode to Marianne Quigley, my daughter's mother-in-law, and just make sure that people know who she is, and also use her as um, just a light to understand that we have to make the best of our retirement years.
Absolutely. She can inspire us and live on through that. And well, Jerry Williams, the director of the Federal Bureau of Happy Retirements. Uh thank you so much for coming on the Happiest Retirees podcast.
And thank you for having me. This has been as fun and exciting and informative and impactful as I thought it would be. So thank you.